Hello everyone, this is James Braithwaite at Braithwaite Physiotherapy, helping you to move beautifully. And today we're going to talk about shoulder motor control. Now certainly shoulder control is something that I've talked about in previous videos where we talk about the use of different exercises. I know for sure we've done some push-ups, we've done some rows to help us to strengthen and stabilize our shoulder. Now, what are we really trying to do in those exercises though? It's not so much, surprisingly enough, about the push-up or the row or the whatever exercise. It's really about motor control, which is your ability to position and hold your shoulder in space and then to control it through movement patterns like a push-up or a row or whatever, right? So there are many common positioning errors that we see when people come in that are associated commonly with shoulder injuries. And I'm going to talk about those things specifically in this little video aside that I've done in an anatomy app that I really like called Essential Anatomy. You can download it on iTunes or on Google Play. And we're going to look at that video right now. It'll give you a quick primer. You can tell me if you find that useful or not in the comments below. But let's go to the primer right now. So here's our little fellow. This is a fantastic app, by the way, called Essential Anatomy 3. You can download it on any device, Apple, Microsoft, Android. This is a Microsoft device that I'm using right now. Great app. It's wonderful. You can add in muscles. You can learn a little bit about each individual. See, I wanted to get a little bit of information on the quadratus femoris here. I can get the computer to tell me a little bit about it. I can get the computer to help me pronounce it.
Quadratus femoris.
Right? Creepy. But it's a fantastic device, and I highly recommend this app for anyone who's a professional like myself, or if you're a student, or if you just want to learn a little bit more about anatomy. It's great. So why are we looking at this? Well, we wanted to take a look at some of the different postural faults that we can see at the shoulder complex, some of the different alignment errors. And again, the reason that we're looking at this is because joints have positions and alignments that they like better than others, both in terms of generating high quality, strong and powerful movement and for reducing our vulnerability to injury. And at the shoulder complex, we see a number of common faults. So let's just take a look at what's the lay of the land here. What are we looking at? We've got a scapula here, that's your shoulder blade. We've got a humerus here, that's the upper arm bone, and at the top of the humerus is this little ball type thing called the head of the humerus, and the head of the humerus sits in this little socket that sits on the end of the scapula called the glenoid cavity. Together they make the glenohumeral joint. Glenoid, right, at the socket, humeral, the head of the humerus, glenohumeral joint. Easy, right? And then this sort of complex, this upper arm bone and scapula, articulate with the rest of the thorax, the trunk here, and we want the alignment of all of those things to be just peachy. There's a few common faults that we see that we're going to take a look at in some quick detail here. In this plane, this is called the coronal plane. We notice a number of common faults when someone comes into the clinic, and I want to preface this by saying there's no one-size-fits-all error. Everyone's a little bit different, but there are some common patterns we see. In this plane, in the frontal or coronal plane, what I often see is a depression of the scapula, right? So that it's sitting low. Sometimes we'll see that it's down rotated. So we can imagine that by taking the spine of the scapula, this structure right here. And if we take this axis and down tilt it a little bit, we can imagine this whole scapula down rotating, and that can be problematic. It can also be protracted, the scapula. So here there is a nice ideal distance between the midline at the spine and the medial border of the scapula. And if we draw that scapula out, that's called protraction. And some people sit in too protracted a position. You see that a lot in people who do nothing but work their chest at the gym, or people who are working on computers a lot. They have these sort of forward deviated shoulders, and that can be problematic. If we look at it from the sagittal plane, an issue that we see sometimes is that the scapula is forward tilted. So instead of sitting flush with the trunk in this plane, it is forward tilted like so. And in that type of an issue, you can actually kind of stick your fingers underneath the bottom tip of the scapula and almost grab right onto it, which is a fun trick to play on your friends if they have a forward deviated or an anterior tilted scapula. Another common error that we see is a winging of the scapula. So the medial border, this inside border of the scapula, will sort of poke out. It's a really common problem. You've probably seen that on your friends before, and it really tends to articulate most, or to manifest most, in a plank or push-up type position. So if you see your friend doing a push-up and the inside border of their scapula is sticking out, well, that's winging, and we need to correct that. Another common problem that we try to correct with a lot of these exercise programs we do in physiotherapy is that the humerus itself, the head of the humerus, is not sitting centrally in the glenoid cavity. So the ball itself will be sitting forward or backward, more commonly forward than backward, to be honest. But with just these few little problems that we have discussed, whether it's up rotation, down rotation, protraction, winging of various shapes and sizes, tilting of various shapes and sizes, all kinds of different ways that the alignment of the shoulder can go wrong. And that puts us in a position where we're not generating strength or power the way that we want to, and we're putting ourselves at risk for injury. So we don't like that. We want to correct that, and that's why we do targeted exercise protocols. So I don't know if you found this essential anatomy, this anatomy guide helpful. Make a comment in the comments down below if you think it was useful for you or not useful for you. But in any case, even if you didn't find it useful, do check out this app. It's fantastic in every way. Just love it. Essential Anatomy 3. Right there, you can see. Okay, and we're back. So in that primer, we really looked at a few different common shoulder position faults. There we go. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to first correct those faults. That's called shoulder setting. And then we can use that shoulder setting in the context of specific exercises, like our push-up, like our row, like our whatever. But today we're going to look at a couple of really simple exercises, really intro level 0.5 out of a 10-point scale type of exercises, okay? So as you may recall from that video, some of the more common positioning errors that we see, now this is not everyone, but this is common. Everyone needs an individual assessment, but more often than not, I tend to see these types of errors, and we discussed them in the video. And to recap, they are: people are too forward tilt. This is called an anterior tilt. So we like to tuck our shoulder blade in to take that anterior tilt away, posteriorly tilting our shoulder blade just like so. And then we like to make sure that we're not too far retracted, we're not too far projected, right? We're not too far elevated, we're not too far depressed. We want to be centered is the long and short of it. And that's what shoulder blade, or shoulder in general setting, is all about, right? And the trick that I really like to use is taking that bottom tip of our shoulder blade and tucking it into our body. Now notice that that's not down and back. Down and back is what we've always been taught in terms of how should I hold my shoulders. And it's a bit sort of military style, right? We're a little bit more subtle than that. We're going to tuck the bottom tip of our shoulder blade in. And as we do that, we're making sure that we're not too far elevated, we're not too far depressed, we're not retracted all the way, we're not projected all the way. So once you've got your tuck going on, you're set, then what you can do is you can try these couple of simple exercises, okay? First, I'm going to try what's called an internal rotation, rotating inward, right? So I tuck my shoulder blade, I'm nice and centered. I'm going to press my hand into a wall like this. It's not really that hard. Maybe 6 out of 10 intensity, right? 10 out of 10 is we're busting through the wall, or at least we're dying trying. And I'm holding it for 7 seconds, right? So I just did a 7-second hold, right? You would do 10 repetitions of that. Once you've done 10 repetitions of the internal rotation, you can go to an external rotation. Okay, so once again, I'm going to set my shoulder, boom, tuck that bottom shoulder blade in. Everything's centered. I'm not out of center at all. I'm going to push out into the wall. Boom, just like that. Once again, 7 seconds. 1, 2, skip a few, 7, and I'm done. 10 repetitions of that. Initially, I also really like to add in a pushing back like this. So I align myself at a corner, set my shoulder, pow, push, 7 seconds, right? Again, 6 out of 10 intensity. We're not trying to break the wall down or anything like that. This is nice and easy, right? We can break the wall down later on. We're busting out our push-ups and our rows, etc. Okay, so 7 seconds of that. Now, those are your introductory exercises. I would recommend trying that. As we start to advance through progressions, we can start to work into doing those same exercises, but with the elbows separated from the body a little bit, which makes stabilizing more challenging, right? And then we can also start to do flexion exercises, so raising towards the front later on. And then we can start to add more load, so using things like maybe a TheraBand, right? Something like this would be a little bit more challenge because there's some resistance, right? And then eventually you're going to add them into strength training context. So now, in that type of a situation, I would set my shoulder blade and then execute my push-up, or execute my bent over row, or my whatever, right? Whatever exercise that it is that I want to do. And finally, if you're looking to return to some kind of athletic competition, you would be looking to stabilize your shoulder and execute with good control through athletic movement, like if you're a swimmer going through a swim pole or something like that. That was a terrible swim pole. You can tell I'm not a competitive swimmer, but you get the idea, right? Like executing control well through your whatever the athletic movement is. And that's end stage rehab of all of this. But underlying it all is this concept of setting your shoulder and then executing any kind of movement. And we start today with these isometric pushes that we just showed you, internal rotations, external rotations, and these pushbacks into the wall are called extensions. So you can try that. Again, everyone's unique. Not everyone has the same type of positional dysfunction. And we can take a look at your individual case in clinic, or you can go to a good physiotherapist near you to ensure that the type of corrections you need to make are the ones that are geared specifically towards you, because the ones that I just showed might not be. They're just the most common ones that I see here in clinic. So check with your physiotherapist. If you have any specific questions about this or any other shoulder related or any kind of rehab, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm James Braithwaite at Braithwaite Physiotherapy, helping you to move